Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I am AmalgamAsh, and this is basically rpginabox Devlog 3. Why does my hand look so small? I look like an anime character. But with one minor feature. Today I'm going to be looking at the available scripts that rpginabox has. That is to say, I'm going to be looking through all of the functions. That is the correct terminology, to see exactly what it is I can do. So you're going to be exploring with me, if you choose, the functions of the event editor, and we're going to be seeing what kind of functionality ultimately do we have in pieces or as a whole. So we have the ability to define a custom function, and we can give it a name and arguments, and we can begin it with a series of panels and end it on a panel, I believe is what that would be for. That is cool. Iterable expression builder. Enter each argument name on a separate line. Argument names must begin with a $sign. Perfect. Perfect. That makes sense. So we have a built-in function builder for subroutines. That's how I'm interpreting that. That's going to be very interesting to get into, because if you have a game that makes use of a set amount of commands over and over again, the last thing you want to do is to be having to copy and paste those. But the fact that you get to add arguments into this means that you can take pieces of data, variable pieces of data, and run them through the same steps. So that is really cool. Add character. Add character to what? Tile ID, entity ID. What do you do? Adds a character to the specified tile within the map. Okay, if the tile is not already occupied by another character, the entity ID is optional. It'll be assigned to the new character if supplied. Alright. How did I get here? Add, I double clicked on the, or I clicked on the question mark. But, how can I browse very quickly to the other scripts? Scripting, data types. I already know about those functions. Awesome. There they are. It looks like there are less functions in the manual than there are in the script editor. So while there may be a very good reason for that, such as redundancy of functions, I'm going to remain in the script editor. Add item to container. What would be the purpose of what defines a container in this context? Adds one or more of the specified item to a item container. The ID of the item is case sensitive. And okay, so this is for adding items to things like treasure chests, or putting items on tables, or really anything. Results, one of the items 001 is placed onto the container entity from which the script was triggered. So when you walk up to a container entity and trigger it with perhaps a button press, you will receive the item from the item container. And as we know, the item container looks a bit like a Minecraft treasure chest once it's opened. The UI behaves as such anyway. Add object. So that would be adding an object to the map, such as a tree. So that's very interesting. That means we have the ability to, in-game, allow the player to place objects on the map. Somebody was interested in making a farming sim with this, and I bet that this is how you would do that. Or at least I'm sure that this would be an integral part of the farm sim game making process. You can introduce new interactable objects or obstacles into the scene. After being added, you can use the set entity script function to assign a script to the object, or the modify navigation function to mark a now blocked path as impassable. Amazing. Alright, back to the script editor. That's actually way more than I was expecting already. Add party member. Yeah, that makes sense. And they can get a member ID. Add tile. Add tile? So you can replace a tile in game. Is that what's going on? Yeah. Yeah, so you're replacing a tile in this example, this visual demo, which is amazing, by the way. Thank you, Justin, for the visual. That it said a picture can be worth 1,000 words. It's not always true, but it can be. And a video can be worth 1,000 pictures. This is a lot of information in just a few seconds. I feel like this has been matrixed into my brain. Okay, so you get to have the tile that you select. You put it in these coordinates, which you can easily get the coordinates from the map by right-clicking on the tile in edit mode. And the entity ID will be bridge. So, amazing. Absolutely amazing. The entity ID is not required, but I imagine because it's basically like a tag, you could say something to the effect of there's an event later that will blow up all the bridges, so then anything in a script, you could say anything on this map that has an ID of bridge will now be inoperable. Probably a very poor example, but just something that I tried to come up with on the fly. Alright, so we'll get rid of some of those so that we have a little bit more room, and then zoom in a little bit. Add to group. Why'd you go over there? Come over here. Add to group. Entity. Self, entity by ID, initiator, player, party member. Why would you want to add something to the group? Adds a specified entity to a group. So I think the farm sim would take advantage of this as well. Maybe. What is a group? Groups provide a way of associating multiple entities. Again, I'm amazed that clicking this intuitively just brought me where I needed to be to get this information. So you're learning with me. I haven't done this before. This is literally me opening up the engine for the first time since my last devlog. Groups provide a way of associating multiple entities within a map together to create a group. So, hiding entities. You can use groups as a way to hide a set of entities in the map editor. For example, to hide the roof of a house to allow easier access for editing the house's interior. Okay. So, yeah, because the roof of a house may be made up of several modular parts, and if they're all added to the group roof of house number 1, then you can hide everything in that group at the same time. When you step out of the house, you can show all of them at the same time. Makes sense. Makes total sense. That's one way to do it. That's what I kind of thought that was for. I just wanted to make sure group wasn't like a sort of proprietary term for like enemy group or something like that. It could have been much more specific, but it's not. It's nice and broad. I like it. I like that a lot. Okay. Man, I love discovering things like that and getting excited. It's one of my favorite things about this engine now. Add waypoints. The waypoint, is that something that gets created when you click somewhere? We don't get to know by clicking the question mark this time. This time I have to go back to documentation and look at add waypoint. Add waypoint actually opens the add to group tab. So there's a little bit of something bugged there. That is something I may need to communicate unless it's been updated and I just don't have. Yeah, please note this documentation is currently being brought up to date for v0.5. Oh. Am I like really behind? What am I on? This is 0.7.4. This is an alpha. This is still pre 1.0, which 1.0 has been out for a minute, so I'm sitting here in an old version. Well, let's continue to look through the scripts, because all of these scripts are extremely likely to be in the current version, and I'm going to make sure I update my rpginabox. That's embarrassing. I guess I'm used to things auto-updating or letting me know, and I just don't remember to do it. Apply lighting preset. I think this one's pretty self-explanatory. You can have presets, and you can use an event to apply the lighting preset. So somebody said, hey, can we have a day and night cycle? Yes. You can apply a lighting preset, which if there are preset names, it means that we're able to create these, right? We probably can create them in like the map editor. And how would we do that exactly? Lighting presets. Here's where you can select your lighting preset, and you can save current settings as a preset. So yeah, I'm right. You can do that in the map editor. You can create a lighting preset so that you can have things like day, night. If that's all you require, that's all you need. But you might also wish to have something like high, noon, the other times of day that can be defined by the amount of light and the direction of the light, the intensity and the shadow direction. And you could, with the duration here, make it so that your sun can travel across the sky. This was me with the sun, not smoothly moving, but rather because you probably don't want to set up like 60 seconds times 60 minutes times 24 hours worth of presets. It might be a little jittery, but it would make perfect sense, and it would be great to see that. All right, so we can have a day and night system by using this event and having it set to different times. I love that. So next, script, please. Script tools, assign entity ID. I think at this point that's self-explanatory. Attach object. Attach object. What are you doing all the way over there? Over here. Hang out with us. Hang out with us. I accidentally duplicated that. Object model. Target entity. Attach point ID. Object attach point ID. So I know in this engine there are attach points on the models, and this makes sense in the sense that if you pick up a weapon or buy a weapon or select equip weapon and or armor and or item, hat, whatever the case may be, maybe you have to go pick up chickens from the chicken garden. That's called a farm, Ash. Then you can walk out there and you can pick up the chicken, and you can use this. Stop laughing about chicken garden. You can use this event to attach the chicken graphic to your character so that it looks like they're carrying them, maybe over their head, maybe in front of them, maybe other side, whatever. And you can use an attach point ID, so you could theoretically have several different attach points, each with their own unique ID per model. And the object and entity, you can specify both of them here. It's extremely powerful and extremely easy to understand. God, kudos to Justin for that design. I'm really becoming convinced that I get nothing out of this, by the way. I'm not kissing butt. I do appreciate good UI when I see it. I really, really do. And I'm beginning to think Justin not only has a real knack, or like probably, to be honest, a professional history with creating UI, but also like the psychology behind it, which I think is very necessary. And I would have to be, I would absolutely have to believe that he either does this professionally or has done it professionally for a long time, because it makes sense. Change camera, standard first person, that's cool. Self-explanatory, but it's very, very cool to look at and see. Were those all the options for that? Yeah, just standard and first person. I wonder if having more camera options for standard and first person here would make sense. Like, not only can you change the camera between first person and third, is there a way to change things like the field of view? Lock camera, look at target over time, move camera, reset camera, rotate camera, and do these things over time or at speed. No, it's not quite, it doesn't quite work that way. Oh, this zooms in and out the way that I think it should, not like an art program. Okay, good. But that's fine. That's fine. There's your camera control. All right. Looking at targets is something that I think is extremely useful as well. You can look specifically at entities that are movable or static, so that your camera will be looking at them no matter where they are, and you can look at coordinates So awesome. Very versatile. I don't remember clicking on create platform. Is that the next thing in our list of tools? Yes, it is. Create platform. I did click on that. Tile, movement speed. How many voxels a second? I imagine there is a way to control where that would be going, right? So where is the create platform documentation? We don't have it in this version. It's probably in the new version. I'm not going to disparage the creator for that at all because I have the older version. So that's create platform. We'll decide, because create platform seems like a very useful mechanic for me for what I want to do. Damage entity. You can damage the player by however amount you need, or another entity. Detach object, that's self-explanatory. Disable container, so once you grab something out of a container, or maybe you'd like to disable that entity ID only, maybe you can no longer get stuff out of it because it's locked, or because player just doesn't have access to it anymore. I think that's fine, that's cool. Display choices. Array. Don't know how many choices you can have, but this is always a great thing to have. And then the result variable or property can be in the string result. Yes, or I said it was well, I guess it is a string. No, that's for variable names. Either way, this will be put in the result variable, and then you can do a if result is 1 or if result is 2, then you would be able to enact branches based on that. We have display message, hello world. The speaker entity can be none, or it can be a character, and if it's none, then you'll just get the message on the screen. Enable a container. End battle. Outcome, victory, defeat. Yep, that makes sense. Equip an item. Where did that go? Where did equip item go? There you are. You can equip it to the player or someone else, initiator, party member, tile by coordinate, and into what slot? So we get slots, and I think that's extremely useful and necessary. Execute script. That will allow you to run a script, and you can choose to pause your current script that's calling this one until it is complete, so you can call subroutines. Fade in. Useful. This was probably fade in and out. Those might have been like some of the first two that were given to the engine. I would think they'd be pretty quick to throw in. I could be wrong. Item name, item count for give item. We have heal entity. Seems self-explanatory, but you never know. We have hide group. I'm gonna move this camera, this canvas. Hide group. So there's our other half of that. Why'd you go in the corner? I moved the camera so it would stop going in the corner. Hide inventory, no parameters required. Hide toolbar, no parameters required. Hide widget, probably the same. Oh, it's the widget ID. Load data, file name, password. Password, result variable or property. Interesting. Very interesting. You allowed password. That's not the same as load game. That's even more interesting. So now I'm very interested in what load data actually means. Can I get the help file for that? No, but that's... oh wait, there is more. I was wrong about the amount of help topics for scripting. I just needed to scroll down. Load data is not in this old version. That's fine. I'm interested in what that does though. Load map, we've used load map. Lock camera makes sense. Lock and unlock player interaction and movement both make sense. Log message. Not sure what we would do with that. Perhaps I'll take a look at the help file for that later. Look at target over time. We've looked at that stuff. That's camera stuff. Modify navigation. So this is going to allow you to go from a tile to a tile and change the navigation between those tiles from walk and interact to walk only to interact only to pending to none. Okay. We have the move cameras that I've looked at already. We have move character, self tile ID. I want there to be another option here, another parameter for locking the orientation of the character and or using a specific animation while walking. Move platform. Move platform. This time we have a waypoint name. So we were able to create a platform with one event. This is the move platform. So now create platform makes sense. We have move player, which to a tile, I suppose. Is that what you're saying? Override animation. Entity, animation to override. Override with what? And that animation would presumably be on the same entity already prepared in its animation list. Play animation, play group animation. Both of these will play animations either on a single entity or an entire group. You have a whole bunch of people dancing in tandem. Play music. We get to play music. We don't have a volume option. Play sound. Same thing. Print to console. Okay, I like that. Put entity. What entity? What tile? Put player. Remove entity. Remove entity from group. Remove item. Remove item from container. Remove party member. Replace navigation. So, yes. You can select an entity and replace their navigation type, one of their specified navigation types, with a new one. Okay. Kind of makes sense. I'd have to see it in context to master it. Reset entity rotation. Reset map. And you just get to reset the map. Restart game. Restore party member. Revive character. Restore party member? I think that would have to do with like their health, magic, things like that. Rotate entity towards, rotate player to direction, save data, save game. There's that save data. This really makes me curious. Because if you can save things to an external file and you can access that file with passwords, we have the means to create some really, really, really cool stuff. I love the ability to make files outside of engines, but within the engine. If I can make a text file and access it and have the player interact with it either in or outside the engine, that's great. Set ambient light color, set ambient light enabled and intensity, that's great. Set the animation speed, makes sense. Set character name, set dialogue. Entity ID and dialogue. Looks like dialogues are something we can make. Yep, there's a dialogue editor. So those are things we'll have to make separately. Set directional light color, light enabled, light intensity. Set entity blocks sight. And set whether or not an entity blocks a line of sight. That's cool. Set entity light attenuation color, diameter, intensity, and whether it's enabled. Set entity model. Thank you for that. So you've detached the model from the entity, and you get to replace that model. That is cool. That's powerful. That's not something you end up doing at this level in other engines. You can usually replace usually the model and the entity are together. They are prepared together, and you can replace the entity's model, but having an event to change that appearance is awesome. Set entity property. property name, property value. Okay. I guess there are custom properties you would be able to give entities, such as things like traits that they have. Perhaps for things like farming sims, romance sims, I could think of doing that. How much this entity's property in love, what its value is set to. Set entity script. I could be totally wrong about that use case. I don't know yet. Set entity texture. Entity texture. Really? Really? So you can really just go all out, fully customizing your character during runtime. That's golden, man. That is platinum. Platinum. Self-expression in making games and giving the player the ability to express themselves in the game is top tier in my book. Set entity tooltip. I appreciate that. Set global property. Okay. Set group light color and enabled. I don't need to look at those. Set language. Set movement speed. Set vision height. That's for first person. Am I right? Yeah. 12 voxels. No, I guess that could be for either. I guess that could be for wherever the camera is. Maybe it's only for first person. I don't know. Show credits, show group, show inventory, show toolbar, show widget, start battle, start dialogue. Again, selecting a dialogue, stop player, unequip item, and wait. And those are the commands that I have for my version of rpgbox, which is like, it's 0.5 and we're past 1.0, I would think. So, yeah, I'll be revisiting that in the future. But now I have a very good idea of the kinds of things that I can do. We've got a lot of basic but very, very necessary panels. And then we have some panels with some properties that really take this thing to the next level and allow you to extend your project into something way more ambitious. Ambitions to me are like layers. If you want a basic JRPG, you have a lot of different options for that. If you want to add crafting, that is an ambition, and that's going to take a layer of complexity and add it to your project, because crafting is usually something that involves several different mechanics that work together and involves attention to things like balance. So there's a lot to consider with that. Then there's another layer if you want your players to be able to gather things. There's another layer if you want your players to have customization. And so far I see a lot of layers that this facilitates. So that's all the time I have, actually, and that went by very, very quickly. So I have to apologize for that. We didn't get to do a whole lot, but I did want to sit down and really make an effort to go through the script options available to me, and I wanted to give you my interpretation of those, because I've used many of these tools, and I've got a pretty decent idea of what I should be able to do just by looking at the scripts, or the events as they may be called, and I feel really good about what's available here in RPG in a Box. So again, I'm giving you my genuine, sincere impressions of what I see, and it might get old from time to time, but it's refreshing and really nice to have options, access to things like this. It's extremely difficult to put something up there with RPG Toolkit for 18-year-old me. That me is I'm always chasing that high, I think, is what the reality of it is. But this comes close. This really comes close, because there's so much stuff here that translates to real code functions, and you don't have to know the code. You just have to think in logic terms, which we'll definitely be doing that to exercise our puzzles when we get around to designing them for this game. So thank you, everybody who watched this far, and I love comments, suggestions, questions, tooltips of any kind in the comments below. Feel free to yell at me for not getting the 1.0 version yet. I'm going to do that. I promise it'll be ready for Devlog 4, and we'll get back to creating a little bit more scenery for our maps and some verticality. We'll utilize some of that vertical real estate. So till then, hope you have a fantastic day. Thank you again for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.